Hey everybody, William Brown back again, and just thought I'd make a little quick video here. I got invited to march against Monsanto, however the hell you say it. They're having a march on Monsanto, Austin, here in a couple more weeks here in Austin. And it's kind of a nationwide, worldwide, whatever, coordinated effort by a bunch of lefties. And I happen to have a couple of lefties on my Facebook friends list, so I got invited to the march. I declined, and then I wrote a little essay on why I declined. I copied and pasted that essay over to my Facebook timeline, posted it. Oh boy, it kicked off a shitstorm. Here they come. Oh my God, you know, shilling for Monsanto. I tell you, man, there's some left-leaning motherfuckers in the liberty movement. God bless their little hearts. So I thought I'd make a video taking some information I garnered from people that replied to that post. There were a lot of people, they liked it, but they didn't leave a comment. They're like, oh, I like what you got to say, but I'm not going to get in that. So most of the people that commented were people that were opposed to my point of view. Hey, it just so happens they left plenty of fodder to use in the video, so here we go. Why I will not be attending the March on Monsanto. Subtitled, Who Runs This Country, Big Business or Government? I thought one kind of leads to the other. Just to clarify a little point that a lot of people seem to miss, or just goes over their head, or they're too busy guzzling lefty Kool-Aid to pull their own head out of their ass and think. I'm not a big fan of using the government to crack down on private enterprise, you know, private corporations or whatever. And that's basically what you're asking the government to do, is to force a company to label their product, to force a private entity to behave in the manner that you want them to, because you want to, because we can pile up in enough numbers and make them do it. Reeks of fascism, you know, which no surprise considering who's generating the whole movement in the first place. Before I really get into it, this is the brief word on Monsanto. Now, first of all, I'm not anti-GMO by a long shot. Genetically modified organisms, hey, you know what? Better living through chemistry. 7 billion people on this planet. We're going to have to feed them some way. That, and there's absolutely no peer-reviewed empirical proof that GMOs are bad for you. Every so-called authority that says they're bad is a flawed authority, somebody who's speaking on something that they're not an expert in, or they have a vested financial interest at stake, or they're just a lying-ass left-winger. I've still seen nothing that convinces me that GMOs are bad for you. You know, me and my old lady, hell, we're dirt-ass poor. I have the same attitude towards GMOs that a starving African has, you know. Give me seconds on that shit. I'll buy whatever I can afford. I'm not anti-GMO, and I'm not necessarily pro-Monsanto either. Generally, I'm for big business. I love big business. I've got a computer that was made by a big corporation. That monitor was made by another big corporation. I've got a cell phone here that was made by a big corporation. And big corporations have given me all kinds of cool shit that really enriches the quality of my life. There you have it. I am not anti-big corporation whatsoever. I am anti-dirty big corporation. So in that aspect, yes, I am anti-Monsanto. I'm against their dirty business practices. But hold on a second. Is it really Monsanto at fault? So here's the truth. Who runs America? Big business or government? And I know it's a lot of people are like, well, the corporations, man. It's the, you know, the Tim Robbins in Team America World Police. Well, it's the corporations. You know, they sit in their big corporation offices and they're all corporation-y. So everybody likes to spank on big corporations. This is learned behavior. You're being programmed to do that. So who do you think it is that fosters this mentality? Who's responsible for you thinking that? Thinking the way that you think when you blame big corporations for shit? Well, who benefits? The government. Who else? As long as you're blaming big corporations for the way shit is, the ones who are actually responsible will never be held accountable, because you're chasing a ghost, a phantom, and stooging for the left on top of that so they can shake the motherfuckers down. And this is a left-wing wet dream. That's exactly the way they want it. They want you holding private property responsible. Because private property is the root of all evil in the world to the left-wing way of thinking. To the true leftist, private property is the root of all evil, not government. Government is your savior, your best friend, your Obama-siah. Now, if you've read Atlas Shrugged, you got a pretty good idea how the game is played. But if you haven't, I'll give you a quick rundown using Monsanto as an example. Okay, the Democrats hit up big corporations. Okay, it's like a carrot and a stick, good cop, bad cop approach. What it is you give us money so we can attain power. We will share that power with you. And if you don't, we will rile up our base against you, make your stock drop and all that shit. So it's going to cost you money to not get on board with us. That's how it works. So if you're out there marching against Monsanto, regardless of how you feel about GMOs or whatever, this and that, you're stooging for the left. You're stooging for corporate interests that are just so much, above you. You don't even know what you're doing. You're applying pressure on private corporations so they can be shaken down by our government. And then you run to our government crying to help you against this corporation. So why would you participate in some dumbass shit like that? Especially with a bunch of dumbass lefties who voted for this cocksuckers in the White House in the first place. You're crying about a problem that you created. You helped create. They could not have created this problem without you. So you can blame Monsanto, blame government, blame whoever you want, but if you really want to know who's to blame, look in the fucking mirror. Government governs by the consent of the governed. So it all starts with you. You put these people in power. If you don't like what they're doing, it's your fucking fault for voting for them. Derp! The buck stops with government. Harry Truman, he's a pretty honest man in the fact that he had a sign on his desk that said the buck stops here. Like George Bush said, I am the decider. That's right. The buck stops with government. For example, how many fighter planes or bombers does corporate America control? 0. How about tanks? How many tanks does big business control? 0. Battalions of armed men? 0. When it comes to armed men, they got their security guards there in their corporate building, and that's about it. So, they don't control shit. Goes back to what Ayn Rand said. Government is the legalized monopoly of force. And this is something that, Republicans, libertarians, anarchists, everybody that's on the right, we all agree on this. It's the legalized monopoly of force. If you understand that government's the legalized monopoly of force, why would you think that the big corporations are the final say-so in the matter? They're not. If you've never read Atlas Shrugged, then by all means, you need to do so. Rand pretty much lays it all out. All the influence that big business has in this country, and they have a lot. They have an inordinate amount, but they purchase every single bit of it. They do not have any because big businesses are not elected to power. Government officials are elected to power. They have the power. The buck stops with them. Now, what you say, you still don't believe me? Oh man, you're just shilling. Hey, well, shill is just a word that a lot of people use to try to discredit somebody they disagree with. We all shill for something. You see, I got the Ron Paul Revolution wallpaper there. I'm shilling for Ron Paul. Shilling for Ron, I'm a 2-time offender right here in front of you. Everybody shills for something. Propaganda is just information that people present to try to win others to their point of view. It can be like good propaganda where you telling people the truth, like pamphlets and stuff that we passed out when the Ron Paul campaign was going. That's good propaganda. It's running shit down to people, how the world works, how things are going, how bad things are going, and why they're going that way. Bad propaganda is like this shit that has all these people up in arms against Monsanto. Look at some of the memes they put out. It's fucking retarded, man. Monsanto does not control one single fighter plane or bomber or tank or not one single battalion of armed men. They purchase their influence. And they're so good at it that Barack Obama took a former Monsanto executive and made him his food czar. So there's your perfect example of fascism, the integration of big business, big labor, and government, or crony capitalism if you prefer. Anyways, getting back to my proof that government runs shit and not big business. Don't know if you're old enough. You remember back in the late 70s and the early 80s when the government finally busted up Bell Telephone. Bell Telephone had a stranglehold on the whole United States. If you're old enough to remember, you remember those phone bills. They're like, forcible sodomy is quite the appropriate metaphor for when you got your phone bill every month. Want to talk about butt hurt? Yes, your wallet was dying. Bell Telephone had virtually no competition. I agree with government force busting up that monopoly in particular, because that monopoly was purchased back in the early part of the 20th century by a man named Theodore Vail, who was a big progressive and the head of Bell Telephone at that time. At that time, there were many competing telephone networks, and he used the power of the dollar and the influence and power of government to squash the competition, and Bell had what they call this benevolent monopoly for about 75 years, until finally the government moved in and busted it up. Actually, they didn't bust up a monopoly so much as they revoked a charter. Dig what I'm saying? I never really had a problem with that. You look at all the competition we have in the telecom business nowadays, all of them trying to undercut each other, and hey, it's good for me, good for you, good for everybody, right? And good for them. Hell, they're making billions, and you get a good product at a good price, a good service, whatever. One thing the government finally got right is they busted up Bell Telephone. Quit playing favorites. The one that I do have real big issues with, and this is the one that really proves my point. Maybe you're not old enough to remember the late 90s, when Bill Gates, the richest man in the world, who was worth, $46 billion at the time, got dragged in front of the Senate subcommittee like a naughty schoolboy. They tried to crack down on Microsoft's alleged monopoly. Now, here's how that went down. Bill Gates was a particularly ruthless businessman. His parents, back home in Washington, they were very prominent Republicans there in their community. So he was raised up around, Republican way of thinking, capitalism and all that. He himself was a Democrat, but he was like just a lukewarm Democrat. He was, for the most part, apolitical. He gets Microsoft, he shanghais all kinds of companies, he steps on a whole bunch of toes, pisses off a whole bunch of people, and he amassed a collection of enemies that he referred to as noise. This is what Bill Gates called them. He called them noise. N-O-I-S-E. Netscape, Oracle, IBM, Sun, everybody else. All of these companies were big Democrat contributors. They finally got what they wanted, with the Clinton administration, and also when Clinton got reelected, they start dumping all kinds of money into the DNC. Now, there's a cap on how much you can contribute to a candidate, or how much a corporation can contribute to a candidate. But if I'm not mistaken, you can give all the money you want to the party in general. I'm not sure on that, so don't quote me. Noise gave a shitload of money to the Democrats, so they dragged Bill Gates in front of the Senate subcommittee, chastised him, questioned him, grilled him up and down. Now, this is the wealthiest man in the world. If big business was really running the show, surely he'd have been able to buy himself out of that, right? And, well, he did. He bought himself out of it by being a big Democrat contributor, a high-profile progressive leftist like he is now, all piled up, with Google and Yahoo and George Soros and all these other shitbirds. And ever since then, Bill Gates and Microsoft, they've been stooging for the left. So, back to Monsanto. You don't like this monopoly that Monsanto has. You don't like their business practices. But, man, most of you motherfuckers that are against Monsanto, you're lefties. You voted for Barack Obama. So, lie in the bed that you made, asshole. You voted for that prick. Well, you got what you voted for. He's a shady, crooked-ass motherfucker. You knew it before the election, so what the fuck you vote for him for? I mean, if you're just that hardcore lefty, you bitch-ass should have voted for Jill Stein. A lot of you voted for Ron Paul. You infected our movement with this dumbass way of thinking. We all got to pile up together and kick a big corporation in the nuts. You don't kick the big corporation in the nuts. You kick the politicians in the nuts. And especially you fucking anarchists. Man, what the hell are you people thinking? Any other time, you're the main ones bitching and moaning about government force. Oh, government force this, government force that. And here you are piling in with the commies to lobby the government to use force. The hypocrisy is appalling. So if you're an anarchist, and you're in with this whole Monsanto thing, feel free to use the comment section below and explain to me why I'm wrong for calling you a fucking hypocrite. Case in point, so you're gonna get out and march in the streets against Monsanto because they're so corrupt and dirty, right? Why don't you march against Google or General Electric? GE. Oh, there's a good one for you there. You know, the same General Electric that owned NBC, MSNBC, and CNBC back in 2008 when Barack Obama first got elected. You know, the good old venerable far-left mouthpiece. Oh, God forbid that you get out in the streets and march against Keith Olbermann and Chris Matthews and Rachel Maddow and all these other stalwarts of journalism. Man, you talk about a bunch of scumbags. They purchase every bit of influence they got. They have to because they can't manufacture a decent product. The only thing General Electric even makes anymore that's worth a fuck is shit that's used to kill people. They're the #1 manufacturer of nuclear weapons on the planet. With the 2nd largest defense contractor, with the 8th largest defense contract with the United States. Nah, these stats are from 2008, I believe. So, don't quote me on that either. They might have changed. But, oh yeah, General Electric, man, they're up to here in making nuclear bombs in the armaments industry. So, why don't you march against them? Oh, wait, that's right. Because their CEO, Jeffrey Immelt, or however you say it, that's Obama's job czar. General Electric and Google did more to put Barack Obama in the fucking White House than just about anybody else who's not named George Soros, right? Why don't you march against them? Monsanto wouldn't even have any of the power, the monopoly, influence, or whatever that they have without the fucking Obama administration. And what really gets me is going online, go to these left-wing blogs and left-wing sites and, read up, the comment section and all that. All these dumb dipshit lefties, man, going off on Monsanto, all their Republican cronies they have in Washington. Republican cronies? I wasn't aware that Monsanto had any Republican friends. Man, they're pretty much a lib-prog gig, man. And you gotta stop and think. Who's really to blame for this shit? The bottom line, the buck stops with government. Okay, it would all be kind of pointless to make this video telling somebody you're going about something the wrong way without, kind of giving them an idea of the right way to do things. If you didn't notice, on the back of damn near every product in the store, there's a 1-800 number where you can call these companies directly to them, tell them they're doing a good job, tell them they're doing a shit job, tell them, what they could be doing better or whatever. Now, you may be thinking, big corporations, they're not going to listen to their customers. Shit, the hell you say? They listen to me and others like me. Back in 2003, okay, back up just a second. This stuff called International Delights flavored coffee creamers, okay? Yes, I like French vanilla coffee creamer. No, I'm not gay. Okay, the way they designed their bottles back then, if your hands were wet, the bottle was real slippery and the plastic was very brittle. So if it slipped out of your hands and fell on the floor, fucking coffee creamer go everywhere, right? I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning working construction, trying to make a pot of coffee out of, bloodshot eyes. And I kept on dropping the creamer all the time. Had to go buy another one before, the old one was even used up. Finally, I dropped one for the last time and I got pissed. I made it a point every morning when I got up and I took my shower and got ready to go to work. As soon as I got out of the shower, I called that company I had their numbers on speed dial. And I'd call them and I'd tell them I was very unhappy with them about the design of their bottle because I kept dropping it all the time. And that if they couldn't change the design of their bottle, I was going to switch over to Coffee Mate, which is their main rival. I also explained to them that I felt like Coffee Mate was an inferior brand, but at least their bottle had an ergonomic design that was easy to hang on to, when you're fucking hung over at 4:30 in the morning getting ready to go to work. Evidently, they listened. There's probably a lot more people than just me calling, but they listened because now their bottles are designed differently than they used to be. To give you another example, I don't know if you've ever seen the double episode of South Park called Cartoon Wars, when they're trying to get Family Guy yanked off the air, and they have the cartoon character of the Fox executive saying, we need to cancel Family Guy because 7 people called in complaining, that it's offensive, and we all know that one caller equals 1 billion people. But in real life, Christians get shows yanked off TV all the time, TV and cable. They call in numbers. They bitch to the network that it's offensive and that they're going to boycott the advertisers. They call the advertisers, we're going to boycott you if you keep supporting this show. So the advertisers, they yank their advertising, and the networks notice and they yank the show because a tiny handful of religious wingnuts made it happen. You can make it happen too. Maybe not approaching Monsanto directly. I don't think that they actually make products themselves. I think that they make shit that other companies use. Approach those companies. I know Kellogg's, Frosted Flakes, that's one of the main ones I see the lefties bitching about. They got a 1-800 number on their cereal. Call them up. If a product doesn't have a 1-800 number, Google their company name. Guarantee you on their website there's going to be some way that you can contact that company and let them know what you think of how they're doing business. You got two great weapons at your disposal. One is the internet, which is like, fire, the wheel, and the internet. But the other one is the oldest weapon known to man, your hard-earned money. If you don't like the way a company is doing business, don't buy their shit. It's that simple. Use the internet, the other great weapon. Get all your friends wired up to do likewise. Call them up. If you live in a town where their corporate offices are, go stand out on the sidewalk holding signs. These dirty motherfuckers are using GMOs and won't label their product and I don't like it. They're going to listen. You know why they're going to listen? Because they're scared to death that if they don't listen to you, then their competition will. And every big business you can name has another big business that's competing with them directly. I don't know of anybody that's really out there that's got a monopoly on anything. I don't think Monsanto is the only one making genetically modified food. Call these companies and pitch your bitch to them. Man, fuck all that marching in the street. You trying to get the government involved. Because by marching in the streets, all you're doing is showing the government how much you need them. How much you depend on them to solve your problems. They're the motherfuckers who created the problem in the first place. You can empower yourself with your hard-earned consumer dollars instead of crawling on your knees to a bunch of fucking crooks. That's why I'm not attending the Monsanto march. Though I might be there with my camera to troll. It makes great video fodder for YouTube. Trolling dumbass lefties. The only fly in that ointment is that's the same Saturday that Texas and OU plays, so I don't know. I'm going to have to budget my time there. Anyways, this is William Brown reminding you the buck stops with government, not big business. Big business doesn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out that they don't purchase from your elected officials. Thank you for watching, and may whatever God you worship bless you abundantly. Goodbye.